Good evening, everyone. Tonight we are having the second session of this union budget analysis. In the last session, last night we have discussed about how much is the expenditure, how government is, from where the government is getting money, from where the government is spending. So those macroeconomic indicators we have already seen last night. Tonight, we shall be looking at the specific ministry related aspect, more of a like where government is spending, what is the plan of the government, how much is the expenditure, what are the different schemes in which the government is planning to do the expenditure. Okay, and since this is a live session, I would like you to make it interactive. I would like you to reply. I will ask a few questions as well because a lot many schemes are those which are already running. So do reply me whenever I ask any questions immediately. Okay, so keep your finger on the keyboard. One more warning that I would like to give in advance is that there would be a lot of data and graph in today's class. Like in budget, today's newspaper also you might have seen, they are talking about a lot many things like for this many percentage, this lakh crore has been allocated to this ministry. The first and foremost thing is you need not memorize the allocation to any individual ministry or any individual scheme. Okay, that is not something which is required. What you need to memorize is any change, any trend that is there. As I had given you that 3T formula, that what you have to do is first you have to look for the terms, any new term, relatively unknown term which is there in the budget. Second thing is there any trend which is being followed? And third is any turbulence, something which is drastically changing, which is being introduced by the government. So these are the things which are to be monitored. Second thing is this PPT would be shared with you on my Telegram channel. So do डाउनलोड द पीपीटी. अलॉट मैनी ग्राफ्स आपसे तुरंत अभी नोट नहीं हो पाएंगे लाइव क्लासेस में और ना ही उनको नोट करने की जरूरत है, बट एनालिसिस आप नोट करते जाना. डू नोट द एनालिसिस. एंड आगे बढ़ने से पहले दोज ऑफ यू हु आर ऑनलाइन, प्लीज लाइक द वीडियो, शेयर इट विद योर फ्रेंड्स ताकि वो लोग भी इसका फायदा उठा सके. ठीक है, जहां कहीं भी आपके फ्रेंड सर्कल में आप अपने स्टेटस में डालो ताकि बाकी लोग भी ये इंश्योर करें, ये प्रॉब्लम ना फेस करें. क्या है प्रॉब्लम? लाइक बजट में अपने काम की क्या चीज है? अपने काम इन मीन्स what is there for the UPSC aspirant in the budget, and this is a very difficult task to find it out, and the whole purpose of this video is to make your life easy. Now let's start from where we had left in the last class. In the last class we had talked about deficit. Okay, what is the budget deficit? I got some interesting diagram. We have discussed in the last class that the government has met its fiscal deficit target, in fact overshoot its fiscal deficit target. 5.9% was the target, and government is saying that we are going to achieve 5.8%. Something better usually does not happen. And if we look at this spending and revenue graph, you can see there is no consistent trend in actual spending, or rather this is spending as a percentage of GDP. So spending as a percentage of GDP for the government increased. It increased in 2021, which was the COVID year. No surprises for this. There has to be an increment. Then after that, the spending has been continuously decreasing. Then revenue took a hit in 2020. Revenue reduced, then revenue increased, but still 30-year average, if the 30-year long-term average we take 9.8%, revenue is less than that long-term average. So still the fiscal deficit is higher than the 30-year long-term average. Okay, so the spending, this number you need to memorize. The spending of the government is 14.5% of the GDP. So spending is also less than the 30-year average, and revenue is also less. The GDP, as you can say, that the gap is fiscal deficit, which is narrowing. Over a long period of time, there is no consistent trend that consistently as a percentage of GDP, either spending or revenue is increasing. The trend is only from 2020 onwards. So trend पे questions आते हैं. You got to be careful. The next thing, this is also something which we are talking about. Here you can see that from this point onwards, from say around 11, 12, from 2013 onwards, the absolute, this is the bar graph is showing the absolute amount of fiscal deficit. So absolute terms में fiscal deficit has been increasing, but as a percentage of GDP, there is no consistent trend. From here it was decreasing, then all of a sudden in 2020 it increased, and then in 2020 it has reached to 9.2% of GDP. From then it is continuously decreasing. So अगर question आता है कि since after the post-COVID time, fiscal deficit as a percentage of GDP has been reducing, that's correct. But in absolute terms, the amount of borrowing which the government is doing, it is not a consistent trend. Here it has, I mean, this is negative. So the smaller the graph, better it is. I mean, a small amount of borrowing is this. Okay, so this is a reduction in borrowing. Then there is increment in borrowing. There was slight increment last year, and this year we are expecting to reduce the amount of borrowing by the government. So if I give you a statement that after 2020-21, the borrowing by the government has been consistently reducing, is it correct or incorrect? Since 2021, the borrowing by the government has been consistently reducing. Yes, that is going to be false. When I am using the word borrowing, it means in absolute terms how much money, lakh rupees, the government is borrowing. There is no consistent trend. But if I say you that the borrowing as a percentage of GDP has been consistently reducing, would it be correct or incorrect? Borrowing as a percentage of GDP has been consistently reducing. That would be true. Okay, because this graph is showing the borrowing as a percentage of GDP. And borrowing as a percentage, पहले 9.2% था, then it came 6.5, then this year 5.8, and then in the next year it would be 5.1%. So this is going to be true. So you got to read the questions carefully. If you have made these statements correct, ठीक है, तो वीडियो को लाइक करो. There has been some learning. Like the video, share the video. And then let's talk about some other terms which are there in the newspaper, etc. One term which is there in today's Hindu is fiscal rectitude. We have already seen in the last class, there was something called fiscal consolidation. The fiscal rectitude and fiscal consolidation have similar meaning. It means that the government is acting responsibly. Responsibly means it is not taking too much of loan. The deficit is limited. So that is called fiscal rectitude. Then there is something called crowding in and crowding out effect. So when COVID came, there was a fear of recession in Indian economy. At that point of time, government went for this crowding in effect. How? Government increased its spending. We have seen in the graph that the government spending was increased so that economy could grow. There could be demand could be generated in the economy. That was crowding in effect. Now, if government continues to do the spending, if government continue to do the borrowing, the space available for the private sector to borrow would be less. I mean, banking sector has this amount of money available with itself. Government is borrowing this much, so only this much is available for private sector. So at the time of recession, the private sector is not interested to borrow. So at that point of time, government should increase the borrowing and induce something called crowding in effect. But after recession, fear is over. When private sector is willing to invest, the government should make a reductionist approach. Government should make a space for the private sector. Now, by reducing the fiscal deficit, government is trying to avoid crowding out effect. Crowding out effect is to be avoided. Why? Because if government now does the crowding, the space available for private sector would be less. And if space available for private sector is less, private sector would not be able to do the investment. And if private sector does not do the investment, it would lead to this is called crowding out effect. Because of the borrowing by the government, the private sector has been moved out of the economy. Okay, so government is trying to avoid crowding out. Government has been successfully done the crowding in. So if these terms are there, I hope you would be able to make sense with them. If you have any doubt, you can ask. If you are not able to connect with these things that I am saying, you must ask it. I think these are easy things you must have studied in your classroom as well. Next thing, the government is saying that there are 4 pillars of Viksit Bharat. Already we are saying that we are in the Amrit Kal. We are going to be a Viksit Bharat, developed nation, very soon. So the government is saying that there are 4 pillars. And these are called 4 new castes of the country, which are denoted by an acronym GYAN. Okay. G for Garib, Y for Yuva, A for Annadata, N is for Nari Shakti. So GYAN is the new, in the words of our Prime Minister, GYAN caste is the new fourfold caste division of Viksit Bharat. Garib, Yuva, Annadata, Nari Shakti. This is something that you can also use in your essay paper. In your essay, you can, whenever you have to talk about the development or developed India, you can structure your essay in this category, Gyan category. Okay. Now let's see one by one what has been done. Like this was the budget. This was less of a budget, more of a report card of the government. As I have discussed in the last class as well, that the finance minister has time and again compared the performance of this 10-year with the mal-performance of previous 10 years. Okay, so here we shall be seeing few of those data that finance minister has put forward is possibly useful for us. So what we shall do, we shall look at those data, which are those data, and where we can use them. So like in case of poverty, they have given the data that there has been decline in the head count ratio. This is like few days ago, the multidimensional poverty index data was released. And as per this data, we are saying that only 11.3% of Indian population are below poverty line now. Okay, or like only 11.3% population is facing multidimensional poverty. Okay. In absolute terms, the government is saying that 25 crore people have come out of poverty. It is very easy number to remember. So I will only ask you to remember the easy numbers. 25 crore people have come out of poverty in last 10 years. So whenever you have to write an essay or any answer on poverty, you can definitely use this data that now India has less number of poor in absolute terms. Okay. You can also do the comparison that not like only around less than 20 years ago, more than 50%, 55.3% people were below poverty line. So we have had a very fast growth. You can also use this data in say LPG reforms related questions, that in post-reform era, the poverty reduction has been happening at a very fast rate. So the same data can be used in multiple places. You always have to use this comparative analysis. Okay, that in 2005-06, 55.3%. Now it is only 11.3%. The government is also saying that we have been able to achieve this high poverty reduction by using direct benefit transfer. Can you tell me few schemes in which the government is using this direct benefit transfer? I will give you the data. Till then, you write the direct benefit transfer. So there could be one specific question on direct benefit transfer itself in mains. So you must remember this number, that 2.7 lakh crore. Okay, this was 25, this is 27, something of that kind. PM Kisan, yes, you are right, Tukaram. PM Kisan is the scheme in which direct benefit transfer is being used, or LPG subsidy. In that case also direct benefit transfer is using. Jan Dhan account is being used, Manu, but Jan Dhan account as such is not a scheme in which direct benefit transfer is involved. Yeah, scholarships are being now paid. Ujjwala Yojana, yes. Okay, so 2.7 lakh crore saving. So if government questions come like discuss about the benefit of direct benefit transfer, if one person can say that it would lead to a lot of saving for the government, and one person can write that it would lead to saving of 2.7 lakh crore. This is definitely a better answer. No, Subham, fertilizer subsidy is still not involving direct benefit transfer. This is just an idea as of now. In fertilizer subsidy, the money is not paid directly in the account of the consumer or the farmer. Rather, money is paid to the companies who are producing fertilizers. Okay. तो ये भी एक स्टेटमेंट आ सकता है कि इन केस ऑफ फर्टिलाइजर सब्सिडी डायरेक्ट बेनिफिट ट्रांसफर इज गिवन टू द फार्मर्स. दैट्स नॉट ट्रू. ओके. Yes, PM Awas Yojana also we are using DBT in some form. Now that they have said that even in MNREGA, Aadhaar enabled payment system has been made mandatory, so the government can say that we are using some sort of DBT over there as well. Okay, although it is not as such a benefit, rather it's just a wages which is being paid. But technically, if we only look from the technology perspective, it's one kind of direct payment which is happening in the bank account. Okay. Now let's look at the Yuva. What has been done for the Yuva? In case of Yuva, this is something very controversial. Definitely, I'm 100% sure that in the coming days, you are going to witness contrary opinion in the Hindu. It is government is saying that in the last, say, 5-6 years, there has been a consistent decline in unemployment. You will definitely wonder that if there is a consistent decline in unemployment, what was the crisis during COVID time all about? Why were people migrating from Delhi, Mumbai and all those areas? Where have they got the employment? So definitely this is a debatable data. But if UPSC simply ask you a question that there has been a consistent decline, you have to mark it correct. That's why I have brought this in this session. Because the UPSC is going to test you on the government data only. If we look at the data produced by the private agency CMIE, Center for Monitoring of Indian Economy, CMIE data says that in 2020-21, the unemployment has increased to 13%. But as of now, हमें government का data मान के चलना है. Yes, Subha, you are right. The price difference in fertilizer paid to seller, but we will not call it direct benefit transfer. Okay, direct benefit transfer is said when the end user, the beneficiary, is directly paid the money. Okay, so obviously someone is going to be paid money, but if that someone is not the final user, the beneficiary, we do not call it DBT. Because in pre-DBT era also, the same thing was happening, na? In pre-DBT era also, someone who is producing those fertilizers, they were being paid. Today also they are being paid. So it is not DBT. Okay, I will tell you the difference. In case of, say, LPG cylinder, earlier people were buying cylinder at a subsidized rate. Okay, the subsidy was being transferred to those companies like Indian Oil Corporation. Now what is happening that people are buying cylinder at the market rate. Now government is paying subsidy directly to the people who are the beneficiary, not to the oil marketing companies. This is DBT. Today, it is not happening. If government tomorrow starts doing it, that the farmer will get the subsidy amount in their bank account for buying fertilizer, it would be called DBT. I hope, Subham, now it is clear. Then the government is also saying that for the youth, we have now, there was 16 IIT, now we have increased it to 23. The number of M's has tripled from 7 to 22. The number of universities have also grown from 700 to 1113. ठीक है, at least a few data, these are easy ones, 7 to 22, 16 to 23, like 22 M's, 23 IITs are now there. And from roughly you can remember that earlier there were somewhere around 700 universities, now 1100 universities are there. Okay, so this is something that you can remember. Apart from that, there is some important data which is given. In case of a Skill India, there has been 1.4 crore youth who have been skilled under Skill India. So now a question can be asked about the effectiveness of a Skill India scheme, that how much youth are being skilled. Now this is the number that we have, although it would have been better if government had produced that out of the total workforce, what is the percentage of workforce is now skilled, whether that has improved or not. Okay, but the government has not produced that data. If that data ever comes into the newspaper, do note it, because that is something which is very poor in India. It is only around 5%, and even this 1 crore, this might not have increased much. Okay, I mean, in our country, the workforce consists of, say, approximately 60-70 crore people. Out of that 60-70 crore, if you have only a skilled 1 crore, this is nothing. Only probably 1% or 2% increment would be there. Okay. The government is also saying that we have established 3000 ITIs. So, agar koi skill pe question hai, first you will write the positive thing, that yes, a Skill India has done this much of a skilling, 3000 ITIs have been established and all those things, and then you will write, but overall still we are very much far behind other countries. Only 5% are formally skilled, as compared to, say, South Korea, where 96% are formally skilled, as compared to, say, China, USA and other developed country, all having 60+% of youth formally skilled. So this is how you will write the answer. Now you have data for both sides of the argument. Okay, so I am telling you how you got to use this data as well, because if I only give you dry data, आप थोड़ी देर में भाग जाओगे session से, or you might be wondering what to do with the data, where to use it. So if you have doubt with respect to any of the data that I give in the today's session, do ask this as well कि सर इसको use कहाँ करेंगे. ठीक है, आपके पास हथियार ही सिर्फ नहीं होना चाहिए, आपको ये भी पता होना चाहिए where to use this weapon. Now let's move forward. Next ज्ञान में next is अन्नदाता. For Annadata, honestly speaking, or other, see, for middle class also, government did not do much. There was a lot of meme yesterday that I saw on internet, which people were saying that middle class people have suffered. And so I feel about agriculture as well. Like overall, allocation of agriculture ministry has increased marginally, but nothing new, nothing much has been done for agriculture. Rather, it was an interim budget, so government said that let's maintain the स्टेटस क्यों. अच्छा है, हमारे लिए भी कुछ खास ज़्यादा पढ़ने के लिए नहीं है, याद करने के लिए नहीं है. वी विल डायरेक्टली मूव टू वुमेन एम्पावरमेंट. In case of women empowerment, there was this Lakhpati Didi scheme which was announced last year. See, in case of a schemes, any scheme which has been announced last year is more important as compared to any old scheme. I'm not saying that old scheme cannot be asked, but relative importance increases. And especially those schemes about which you cannot make a guess through their name. So Lakhpati Didi, it is very difficult to guess from the name. What does it mean? So this scheme is for SSG women. What we have to do? We have to train these SSG women. How much training should be provided? So that they are able to earn at least 1 lakh. Now you can understand the meaning of this name Lakhpati. Lakhpati means they are going to earn 1 lakh per annum. एक साल में 1 लाख रुपए की इनकम हो रही है. How are they going to earn? They will set up some micro enterprises. So what will government do? Government will do the training. After that training, they will get some skill. They will be able to set up a micro enterprise, and through that they will earn this 1 lakh rupees hara hara Gandhi ji ka note. The government is saying that already 1 crore women has become Lakhpati. So the government initially had the target of making 2 crore women lakpati. Now they are saying that within half a year we have already made 1 crore women lakpati. So we can achieve much higher target. Now government has shifted its target to 3 crore. The 3 crore women would be made lakpati. Obviously, even these claims are going to be disputed in the near future because probably the women SHGs is not a new concept. As of now, in India, there is approximately 83 lakh SHGs have already been formed, in which 9 crore women are getting benefit from these SHGs. Okay, so it is not yet still clear whether all these 1 crore women who have become lakpati are those who have benefited from this scheme only, or it also includes those women who have already benefited from SHGs. Because all these 83 lakh SHGs have not been formed after this scheme has been announced. So maybe the details will come in a few days. You have to look into that. But आपको क्या मतलब है इससे कि क्या बना है? आपको सिंपली अगर रखना है कि ये स्कीम है, इस स्कीम का ये पर्पस है, and government is doing all these good things. ठीक है? Next is the government has given some data to prove women empowerment. This data can be used if any question about women empowerment comes. Okay. The first thing is in Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, 70% of the houses have been given to women. Okay, so usually the scheme has this feature that the eldest woman would be considered the head of the household, and the house would be given in her name. Okay, so 70%. Usually this is the background of this is that we have a problem that women do not inherit property in our country. In our country, the property is inherited by male. So that's why this data is important, that 70% of the houses are now being owned by women. Can we say a part of a small and medium enterprises? In which context, Manu, you are saying? Definitely all these women are, these micro enterprises would be part of MSME. MSME ka M is micro enterprises, the first M. Okay. The next says that in higher education, enrollment of women has increased by 28%. Okay, so this is also a good thing because usually this is the common belief that women are only educated up to the basic elementary education level. But the government is saying that in higher education also there has been increase in their enrollment. So much so that in STEAM courses, STEAM like science, technology, engineering, mathematics. Okay, so this is the domain which is traditionally considered that this is the domain where women are not good, or most of the, like ये joke भी चलता है ना कि I am a engineer, हमारे यहाँ लड़कियाँ कहाँ होती है. So the government is saying that that's not true. 43% of the enrollment is that of female candidate. ठीक है, तो आपसे अगर कोई ये जोक बनाए उसको बोलो कि तुमको यथास्थिति का पता नहीं है. ठीक है, there are women, probably you are not aware of them. ठीक है, 43%, approximately half of the students who are studying in these courses are women. ठीक है. Then 83 lakh SHGs have been there. So women are studying more, and since women are studying more in higher education, it is also resulting into increase of labor force participation rate. It has dramatically increased from 23.3% to 37%. In fact, India has witnessed a peculiar trend of reducing female labor force participation rate from 2005-06 onwards. So from 2005-06 onwards, the female labor force participation rate was decreasing. At that point of time, the explanation was given that now women are studying more. Well, that was the point of time when literacy rate has gone up for female literacy. So more women are, rather than joining the workforce, they are going for studies. And probably now After a decade, we are witnessing the outcome of those studies, that now the female labor force participation rate has started going up. Okay, so for a short duration of time, there was reduction because more women were going to studies rather than joining the labor force. Okay, definitely, yes, Manu, you are right. Definitely in the coming future, we are going to witness improvement in global gender gap, because the gap between female and male labor force participation rate, which was approximately 50% here, must have narrowed down to approximately 35% now. This is a good thing. So any question on women empowerment, any say essay related to women, you can use all these data that things are now improving. A positive wind is blowing. Okay. Now you tell me, this Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana has two components. One is Gramin, another is urban. Which are the ministry which is implementing these two components? Yes. So MORD is for Gramin and Ministry of Urban Development, Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, MOHU, Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, which is the ministry which is implementing the urban component. So not both of them are not being implemented by the same ministry. So it can given you as a wrong statement that PM Awas Yojana is being implemented by Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. It will give you a feeling, Ministry of Housing, PM Awas Yojana. So ये दोनों एक ही ministry कर रहा होगा. That's not true. So you got to keep your mind alert to where a wrong statement can be framed, where can a trap be laid down. And if you remember the data or information with this mindset, where can be a trap, you would definitely be able to avoid those traps and get better marks. Okay, simply if you remember the ministry, it would be difficult. ठीक है, वो कर्ण वाला सिचुएशन कई बार हो जाता है कि आपने याद तो सारा किया था और जब जरूरत पड़ा एग्जाम में तो याद नहीं आया. Yeah, that was how Karna was cursed in Mahabharata. So if that not to happen, you got to memorize it with this trick. Okay. Next aspect which is emphasized by the government is infrastructure. This government loves infrastructure and this is a very good thing. I mean, if you are my student in my classes, I always talk that infrastructure is something which initially for the 5 decades after independence, the government did not focus, whether it is physical infrastructure or even social infrastructure. The first thing is the allocation has been very poetic. There has been 11.1% increase in the allocation. Okay, which has taken the allocation to 11,000 crore. ठीक है, all ones are there in terms of allocation of capital expenditure for infrastructure development. ठीक है, इनफैक्ट 3 और है. ठीक है, so 11,11,111 crore is the capital expenditure allocation for infrastructure development. Okay, this is what you can see in the graph. Now in this graph there are certain consistent trend which you can see. In absolute terms, capital expenditure has been increasing consistently for last 7 years, since financial year 18. Okay, even as percentage of GDP, it has been consistently increasing. Okay, so this is a rare thing that there is no COVID impact, because during COVID, government further increased its investment in infrastructure. Okay, and it is said that currently it is 3.4% of GDP which government is, or rather it is not completely on infrastructure, but which is the capital expenditure of the government. ठीक है, and which is translating into 23.3% of total expenditure. Now, so you can remember it simply that approximately 1/4, 25% of total expenditure is capital expenditure, which is unprecedented in this century. This is at the highest level in this century. Or usually the expenditure, the quality of expenditure of any government is measured as the share of capital expenditure. So if a government's revenue expenditure is increasing, it is said that the government is spending money on regular day-to-day initiative. Whereas if government's capital expenditure is increasing, it is said that the government's quality of expenditure is increasing. Government is creating new asset, which will what's the benefit of more capital expenditure? You tell me. You must have studied. Capital expenditure बढ़ रहा है, क्यों बढ़ रहा है? क्या फायदा है इससे? What will happen? What good will happen? Yes, there would be asset creation, but what will happen with asset creation? More asset, more income. Yes, more asset will lead to more future income. More, ठीक है दीपेश, और कुछ सोचो. Think more. It will improve something called incremented capital output ratio. It will increase the efficiency in economy. The efficiency in economy will go up. It will reduce the logistic cost. Logistic cost in India is very high. It is around 16% of GDP, which will go down. If logistic cost will go down, efficiency will increase, growth will be higher, and also our goods will be more competitive. And if our goods are more competitive, it will lead to more export. So there is a word used which is called, there is a multiplier effect. That if we are creating more infrastructure, there is going to be multiple benefit, and all other sectors of economy are going to benefit from this investment. So if this word can also be mentioned, there is multiplier effect. Next thing, that one more word which is used with respect to infrastructure is gestation period. Like if you do any investment, you expect a return on the investment. Like if you are studying this year, you want to be an IS next year. So your gestation period is the gap between when you started studying and when you become IS and you started earning. Probably you want this gestation period to be 1 year, at max 2 years. Okay, but in case of infrastructure, this period is very high. When the road starts being built, and at the time when the traffic start growing, probably there is a gap of 4-5 years. So the effect of investment on infrastructure is visible with a time lag. Usually 4-5 years is the gap between when you do the investment or when government does the investment and its outcome is visible. That's why usually a very confident government in a democracy goes for infrastructure development. And this government is very much confident that we are going to come to the power after election as well. So it is planning for its next term from now onwards only. If a government is not very sure whether it will come for the next term or not, it will do less investment on infrastructure and more on direct benefit kind of thing, so that voters could be persuaded to vote the government back to power. Okay, ये चीजें आपको लिखनी नहीं है, बस समझनी है. ICOR का फुल फॉर्म है इंक्रीमेंटल कैपिटल आउटपुट रेशियो. So it is like how much capital is required to produce 1 unit of output. Incremental word means that how much extra capital is required to produce 1 unit of additional output. That is the meaning of ICOR. Okay, so if ICOR is high, to produce one additional unit of output, you will need more capital. If ICOR is less, you will need less additional capital to produce ICOR. Now, Sonia, you tell me whether more ICOR is good or less ICOR is good for an economy. बाकी लोग भी आंसर करो. Whether ICOR, ideal ICOR should be more or less. No, Amrit, that's not correct. Less is good. Less ICOR means less capital is required for an additional unit of output. So you always want the capital required to be less, na? ठीक है. Say if ICOR is 2, then you need 2 crore capital to produce 2 crore worth of goods and services. Sorry, 1 crore worth of additional goods and services. If ICOR becomes 4, to produce 1 crore worth of goods and services, you need 4 crore worth of capital investment. Now, the government has also announced 3 major economic corridors. This is also something which can be asked in prelims. And if any questions comes on infrastructure or railway, etc., then also you can mention these corridors. ये नाम याद होने चाहिए. ठीक है. The first corridor is energy, mineral and cement corridor. More details are still awaited कि कहाँ ये corridor होंगे, कहाँ पे शुरू होंगे, कहाँ खत्म होंगे. Maybe in the near future, you can come to know about these details. One is port connectivity corridor. Obviously, it would be in the peninsular India. Then high traffic density corridors. These are most likely going to be in the eastern India, which have very high population density. Eastern India or northern India. Okay, so these are the 3 major economic railway corridor which the government is planning. The government has also said that the capital expenditure has tripled. Tripled means increased 3 times in last 4 years. So the government emphasis on capital investment is very, very high. Okay. Obviously, in the near future, we are going to witness this outcome as well. Next, the government has also shown that, see, this is all that we have built. And as I have said, that government is comparing what was there in financial year 2015, what we had inherited and what we have produced. Okay. Probably you need not remember all these data, but some important one like 74 to 150 number of airport, easy to remember. This is something which you should, you can mention if a question comes on aviation sector, etc., that in recent time the number of airport has been doubled. Okay. Here also there has been approximately more than 2 times growth has been there, around 2.25 times growth in there in electrification of railway routes. So approximately 90% of the railway route, more than 90% have been electrified in India now. This is one of the highest. Okay, because say in developed country like USA, there is very less electrification of railway line. Okay, so this is also a very good achievement that India has been able to do in recent times. ठीक है, बाकी सारी चीजें याद करने की जरूरत नहीं है. In case of expressways, the government's performance is not very good. Okay, so that's why probably intentionally expressways have been avoided. India has only approx 6,000 kilometers of expressways as of now, which is not a very good figure. That's like China has 1,90,000 kilometers of expressways. So as compare, our expressway kilometer is very less. So that's why probably the government is not giving those data. ठीक है. So अगर आपको criticize करना है तो आप expressway का data दो, compare India with China. Appreciate करना है तो आप railway electrification का दो या national highway का data दो. So depending upon the need of the question, you must have both the weapon. We will use whatever is asked in the question. Okay, so this is more important for mains, less for the prelims. Then the government has also said that, see, the import release time since 2019 has also reduced. What is this import release time? So like when a cargo comes and it comes to say a custom station. Now the custom officials do the inspection, check the document, check the cargo, whether it is compliant, whether it has paid all the taxes, whether it complies with safety measures, phytosanitary measure, whether it is not having any explosive or any banned substances. So all those things take time. ठीक है? Then approval is given. So the government is saying that approximately 47% have been reduction in import release time on inland container depot. ठीक है? कोई एक डेटा याद कर लो. ठीक है? That the import release time has been reducing. This is also an outcome of improved infrastructure. ठीक है? And few years ago, like India has passed, India has signed something called Trade Facilitation Agreement, which was part of WTO agreement. As a part of that agreement also, India has made various changes in its custom norms to improve the facilitation at the these complexes or depots. Okay, so uska bhi outcome hai ye. The import release time has reduced. This is also a good thing. Say, capital expenditure is good thing, but not so good thing is subsidies. Subsidies are part of revenue expenditure, and a government which has high subsidy is often criticized. कि आप subsidy is like transfer payment. You are making payment to someone without any return of goods and services. So if government is giving subsidy, like you might have seen this quotation that if you want someone to feed for a day, give him a food. But if you want to feed him for the whole life, teach him to catch fish. Yeah. So if you give fish to someone, you feed him for a day, and if you teach him how to fish, if you feed him for the whole life. So infrastructure is like teaching the nation how to fish. It will boost growth for an upcoming decade. Whereas subsidy is like feeding the poor people for one day. When you will give subsidy, he will benefit. Next year, it is not going to have any multiplier effect, any benefit. Okay. So that's why subsidies are not appreciated. This is not to say that all the subsidy are bad and government should shut down all the subsidy, but हाँ, ये limited हो तो अच्छा माना जाता है. Now, if we look at the subsidy bill of the government, it was almost constant since financial year 14 when this government came to the power. But then it all of a sudden jumped in 2021. This was the COVID year. COVID year, government announced various schemes, especially food subsidy bill increased enormously. Okay. And then obviously in the next year, government brought it down. It further increased in this financial year 23. And the government is saying that it will reduce next year as well. So we are going to reduce subsidy, increase infrastructure, all good picture about financial management. However, things are not that good either, because I will tell you why. Last year also, government had made a plan in its budget estimate that it will reduce the subsidy burden from 5,03,000 crore to 3,55,000 crore. But ultimately, at the end of the year, government ended up increasing its spending. ये number याद नहीं रखने हैं. Only thing that you have to remember is that, like last year, the government was last year planning to bring down subsidy somewhere here, even below this level, somewhere like here. But instead, it has ended up here. So this is just a budget estimate. It might end up, the government might end up here. So the government is at least trying, its intention is noble, that we have to bring down the subsidies. Now, you got to understand how government is claiming that this year subsidy burden is going to be less. Okay. So in this, one aspect which the government is banking here is, government is saying that there would be reduction in food subsidy. Why? Because probably government is saying that Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Yojana, Garib Kalyan Ann Yojana, that is going to be discontinued. This was the specific food subsidy scheme which was there for this during COVID. So this is something which government is saying that it would be discontinued. If it is discontinued, there would be reduction. Obviously, it can be discontinued because election will happen in 2-3 months after election. Thus, this freebies can be discontinued. So probably this target government is going to be achieved. However, this reduction in fertilizer subsidy is based on the belief that the Ukraine-Russia war is now going to end. And because of the Ukraine-Russia war, the prices of natural gas has gone up. So if prices of natural gas goes down, the urea subsidy, which is dependent on the prices of natural gas, the urea subsidy will go down. Again, the same was expected last year as well, when government was expecting it to come down. However, actually the subsidy burden increased. So it is dependent on the international factor. As of now, government is expecting that it will go down. A few days ago, there was also a news that for potash and phosphate fertilizer, the government has capped the profit for the private companies. So like there are few fertilizer which are there in nutrient based subsidy regime, which is called NBS, and urea is out of this nutrient based subsidy regime. Okay, the phosphate and potash fertilizer are part of nutrient based subsidy, and in this regime a company is free to decide its MRP or selling price. Now the government is saying that no, you cannot set your selling price if you get subsidy, if you take subsidy from me. You will have to, the government has capped the profit at a maximum level of say 12%. That the maximum profit that a company can earn on fertilizer on which it is taking subsidy from government is 12%. ये number check कर लेना whether it is 12% or 15%, but this is the similar kind of decision that government has recently taken. So now the next thing is, see, all the schemes we cannot memorize. The government has so many schemes, simply like innumerable number of schemes. A scheme के जो document different coaching वाले निकालेंगे वही 100 पेज का हो जाता है. What we should be focusing on those schemes which have got a special mention in budget. Okay. Though ऐसा क्या होता है ना कि there is an 80-20 rule, that 80% of the questions are asked from the 20% of the syllabus, and that 20% of the syllabus is the syllabus which is talked by Prime Minister, which is talked by Finance Minister. So all these things have higher chances of being asked in the exam. And if these are the things, if we prepare, we are having better return on investment of our time. If we prepare everything, we might not be able to answer anything. याद भी तो रहेगा, human capacity भी तो limited है. ठीक है. So there are few schemes like MNREGA. This is the news that I saw yesterday. मनरेगा पर मेहरबान सरकार. ठीक है. There is some channel किसान तक which is giving this heading, and they have seen something like this. ठीक है. This is something like, these are the people who only listen to what the government says. They do not apply their own mind. So the government says that, see, last year we have allocated 60,000 crore to the MNREGA. This year we are allocating 86,000 crore to MNREGA. So they are very happy. Yes, MNREGA allocation has increased. But then they are not looking at something called bigger picture. मनरेगा पर मेहरबान सरकार means that the government is allocating more money to MNREGA. Okay, so this is the financial year and this is the budget estimate. So last financial year the estimate was 60,000 crore. Now this financial year 86,000. So they are saying that, see, there is increment of approximately 40%. So more than 40% increment if any scheme witnesses. This is definitely is in the good book of the government. Yes. Now if we look at this picture, the allocation of MNREGA was maximum in 2020-21. Obviously this was COVID year. There was rural distress, there was urban-rural migration. People have migrated to the rural areas and there they needed job. So government decided to pump more money to this scheme so that people could be provided job. This was a very wise decision. Then it is continuously going down. In 2022-23, the allocation was already 90,000 crore. So this year allocation 86,000 crore is still less than the allocation in 2022-23. And in fact, the last year budget has allocated in the budget estimate 60,000 crore, but the government is expecting to spend 86,000 crore. So this figure of 60,000 crore is a confusion created by the government. Now look at why government does this. Why this smart number play is being done. Because see, when government presents the budget, government have to show that the fiscal deficit is going to be less. So what government does, that in some schemes, government intentionally shows less allocation. Government was also aware that 60,000 crore से काम चलेगा नहीं, और rather MNREGA is a demand driven scheme. If a person comes to the government and says that I need a job, since it is a guarantee given by the act of a parliament, government has to give job. Okay, so government was knowing that 60,000 crore is not going to be sufficient, but in the budget government only allocated this so that government could show less of revenue expenditure, less of fiscal deficit. Okay, now actual expenditure 86,000 crore. This year government has kept the allocation at the same level, so there is no मेहरबानी as these article people are showing. जितना इस साल खर्चा हुआ है उतना ही खर्चा अगले साल हो, it means that you are not being favored, because next year definitely there, because of the inflation, the wages are going to increase, so the allocation should have increased at least by 5%, 6% or something like that. Okay, so as such, I mean such article simply shows that media people are not literate in our country, at least financially not literate. ठीक है, और एटलीस्ट इकोनॉमिक टीचर को ऐसा बोलना पड़ता है ये दिखाने के लिए दैट आई एम लिटरेट. Okay, so this is all the these are the things. If you are able to understand these smart clever move of the government, it means that you have understood the Indian economy completely. Okay, if you have any doubt, like if you are not thinking that it's a smart move, we can discuss. थोड़ा सा बीच में डिस्कशन भी होना चाहिए. You can ask your doubt, we can have a discussion. Now the next scheme, like health and education sector, also have witnessed some of the schemes which have got mentioned in the budget. Let's first look at the education sector, like PM Shri scheme, PM Schools for Rising India. तो PM Shri से नहीं पता चलेगा कि ये स्कीम किस चीज के लिए है, ठीक है. But if you simply read the full form PM Schools for Rising India, it gives an idea that probably some model schools are being created. So in every block, 2 model schools would be created. Maximum of 2 model schools would be created, and these model schools would be finalized in consultation with the state government. Now you make a guess. First statement I am giving A. You have to tell me which of the 2 statements are correct. A statement I am giving that the state government schools can also be converted into model school under PM Shri scheme. Second statement I am giving is that it is a centrally sponsored scheme in the sense that a state government also have to make a contribution. So this scheme also involves a state government contribution. Which of these statements are correct? A, B, both A and B, neither A nor B. This is the statement that you already know. This is true. Based on these, you have to take the decision. This is how you got to apply the knowledge that you have, because you cannot have all the information at your hand. ठीक है, कुछ चीजें तो अप्लाई करनी पड़ेगी. And this application says that if in consultation with the state government a decision is being taken, why is the need of a state government? अगर हमको सिर्फ सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट के केंद्रीय विद्यालय एंड से नवोदय विद्यालय को ग्रांट देना है, then there is no need of consultation with the state government. So definitely state government's schools are also included, and also consultation is needed because state government is also giving the money. If a state government is not giving money, then the central government will only impose its order. So both A and B are correct. Or rather, you can think in this way also, if a state government's schools are going to be improved, a state government should also pitch in with some money. Central government will say. And the idea is that these schools would be model school, other school will learn from their practices. इसके बाद कुछ भी और पढ़ने की जरूरत नहीं है, except for the daily editorial that you anyway have to study. Next is प्रधानमंत्री पोषण शक्ति निर्माण, PM पोषण. This is again like they have changed Faizabad to Ayodhya and they have changed the name of midday meal scheme to प्रधानमंत्री पोषण शक्ति निर्माण. ठीक है. So this is nothing has changed, and they have simply added one component that earlier from first standard to 8th standard midday meal was provided. Now they are saying that the pre-primary student will also be provided midday meal. Okay, nothing has changed as such in PM Poshan scheme. And this is also not this year budget announcement. This has been changed in 2021 itself. So this year only the finance minister has made a mention of this scheme. Needless to say that both of these schemes are part of Ministry of Education. Now Ministry of Human Resource Development has also been renamed as Ministry of Education. नाम बदलने में बहुत ही माहिर हैं लोग. ठीक है. So see, there are few areas in which finance minister is मेहरबान, like infrastructure. There the new schemes, new road, new infrastructure is being built. But in few ministries, the finance minister is not so kind. No new allocation is coming. So those ministries are simply changing the name of the existing scheme because they do not have the money to launch a new scheme. Okay, so this is how different ministries of the government are performing. Okay. Now next is Ayushman Bharat PM Jan Arogya Yojana. This is also a very difficult thing for me to appreciate, that the same scheme, why it has two names. Either have Ayushman Bharat or Jan Arogya. Why you have two names to confuse the students? But chalo, chal raha hai. Now in this year, the benefits have been extended to all the ASA worker and Anganwadi worker. Okay, and so these workers will also be entitled to this Ayushman Bharat scheme. Now you tell me that who are the current beneficiary? What is the eligibility criteria for the current beneficiary in this Ayushman Bharat scheme? Till then, I will give you some data that in this scheme, 10 crore households are to be covered. And all these 10 crore households gets 5 lakh health insurance, or rather health insurance worth rupees 5 lakh. So this is the scheme. Who are the current eligibility? No, BPL families are not the right answer. So currently the beneficiaries are selected based on socio-economic caste census data. Socio-economic caste census data which was collected in census 2011. So based on this ACCC data, there are various criteria like exclusion criteria, inclusion criteria are there. Based on those exclusion and inclusion criteria, beneficiaries are selected by the central government. Then the government has also announced that there is U-Win platform. Like earlier, there was this Co-Win platform. Co-Win platform was used for vaccination of COVID vaccine. So now this government is coming with U-Win platform for in general immunization. Okay, so Indradhanush program is there. Indradhanush program is aimed for the routine immunization, and that immunization would not now be electronically tracked, that which child has got immunized or not. Maybe a few years later, those children who have not got immunized, they will be debarred from appearing in civil services exam. So make sure that your children get immunization. I was saying it on the lighter note, isko seriously nahi lena hai. ठीक है? But now the government will keep a track that which children has got which of the vaccine and which have not got the vaccines. Okay. इसके अलावा गवर्नमेंट ने पीएम विश्वकर्मा स्कीम which was for the artisans, and Swanidhi scheme, which was for the V है यहाँ पे, हाँ, Swanidhi scheme, which was for the street vendors. These were also the schemes which were part of the budget speech of the finance minister. तो थोड़ा सा इनके बारे में भी एलिजिबिलिटी क्राइटेरिया वगैरह आपको देख लेना है, ठीक है. Next we shall look at the green energy aspect. This is also something very dear to this government, because the government is targeting that by 2070 we must achieve net zero, and this is something where the government has been doing a very good job as well. Now the government in this year also, this is a very ambitious scheme which was announced the day after the consecration of Ram Lala in Ayodhya, that there is going to be rooftop solarization of 1 crore household, and they will obtain 300 units of free electricity per month. Now see, the details of this scheme is not there in the public. So it is not very clear if these 1 crore household would get the rooftop solar panel for free. And if the households are not going to get this solar panel for free, this electricity cannot be called as free. Okay, so the details is not still present. How, if government will, most likely government will provide some subsidy, and based on that subsidy there is one concept called net metering. So in net metering, what happened that you have a connection of electricity, so you are consuming electricity, at the same time you have rooftop solar panel as well, so you are producing electricity as well. This produced electricity can be sold to the DISCOMs, the electricity company. So suppose you have consumed 500 unit of electricity, and then you have sold this, and say 300 unit of electricity you have produced. चलो ऐसे नहीं करते. Suppose you produce 300 unit of electricity, out of that 100 unit of electricity you consumed. You have surplus electricity of 200 unit. But at the same time, from electricity or rather from distribution companies, you will take for electricity for the consumption during night period, because in the night period this solar rooftop will not provide you electricity. So it may happen that 75 unit of electricity you have consumed from electric grid. So this 200 unit you will sell and 75 unit you will buy. So this electricity company will pay you for 125 unit, rather than taking the electricity bill for this 75 unit, they will pay you for this 125 unit. This is called net metering. What is the net consumption? Net consumption could be positive and could be negative as well. So this is the concept which the government wants to popularize. As of now, it is not very much popular in India, but if this scheme comes to the fore, this is something which is gonna happen. Okay. Then see, there is something called, like, government is saying that coal gasification and liquefaction capacity is going to be established. Now the question will not come that in budget how much money is allocated for the coal gasification. What will come is that what is coal gasification? ये question आएगा. So this is how you got to prepare. In nutshell, if I tell you what is coal gasification, so if in the presence of limited amount of oxygen, you are converting coal into syngas. Syngas is CO plus H2, carbon monoxide plus hydrogen. Then this process is called coal gasification, because you are converting coal into some fuel gases. These fuel gases are known as syngas. Similar is the term coal liquefaction. तो यहाँ पे गैस था, तो you have converted into gas. If you convert them into, say, some crude oil, this would be known as liquefaction. So crude oils are, what are crude oils? Crude oils are basically hydrocarbon. Hydrocarbon has hydrogen as well as carbon. Coal already has carbon. So if by some method, rather in the presence of hydrogen at high pressure and in the presence of some catalyst, you are converting coal into hydrocarbon. This would be known as coal liquefaction. You can either write it down now or you can write it down later. Coal liquefaction is converting coal into some liquid fuel like crude oil. How you are going to do? Because coal is carbon, this crude oil is hydrocarbon. So your objective is to attach hydrogen to the carbon. ठीक है? So how you will do? You will bring carbon, coal with hydrogen in presence of some catalyst and high pressure. Maybe high temperature situation also. इतना डिटेल में हमें जानने की जरूरत नहीं है. And it will convert into crude oil. Now see, these crude oils, they are relatively, see, it's not that these are not going to produce any amount of greenhouse gases. If you burn the crude oil, this is like diesel, petrol, these are also fossil fuel. They will also produce some amount of greenhouse gases, but they are relatively cleaner fuel as compared to coal. That's why such processes are called green processes, are part of green energy. Okay, they are not as green as solar energy. Now next thing is, the government is saying that there will be mandatory blending of compressed biogas into CNG and PNG. CNG is compressed natural gas, PNG is piped natural gas. So like bioethanol is being blended to petrol. Similarly, in natural gas, some biogas would be mixed in these CNG and PNG. So this is something which is going to come in the future. Then the government says, government gives also some data. The government is giving that, see, the installed electricity capacity has already reached 44%. And see what we have inherited. We have inherited 30%. So from 30%, the share of non-fossil fuel installed electricity capacity has increased to 44%. And this is definitely a good achievement. Like if you watch any cricket match, all the cricket stadiums or all the railway stations rooftop, they have solar panels now. There is visible change in the solar energy capacity, etc. So this is definitely good achievement. और renewable energy पे एक specific question आ सकता है. Question आए, फट से डेटा चेप देना है. कुछ स्टूडेंट को मैंने देखा था, वो सोलर पैनल का फोटो भी बना देते हैं. ठीक है, दिस इज अ वेस्ट ऑफ स्पेस. ऐसा नहीं है कि फोटो अच्छे होते हैं मतलब कोई भी फोटो बना दो. दिस फोटो इज नॉट कम्युनिकेटिंग एनी आंसर. सो ये फोटो बनाना अच्छा नहीं है. द फोटो शुड एबल टू कम्युनिकेट सम इंफॉर्मेशन. दैट फोटो इज गुड. ओके. The next aspect is the government is also worried about research and development. India is usually not good in R&D. ठीक है, we are like global capital of medicines, but of generic medicine. Generic medicine is like some company did the research R&D work, it patented it, its patent got expired after some period of time. Then we have produced the generic version. We have copied that. We are not doing original research. And in this original research also, the most of the research which is happening in India is part of public sector. Private sector is not doing any research. Private sector is not interested in investment. Again, here comes the picture of gestation period. In R&D, there is high gestation period. There is high investment. And private sector is not willing to take that risk. So now, the government has come up with a scheme. Government has said that 1 lakh crore fund is going to be instituted. And this fund has some similar feature that we have discussed last night. It is also a 50-year loan on zero or negligible interest rate, which would be available to private sector. Now see very smartly again what government has done. This is a kind of grant. भाई 50 साल बाद न लोन लेने वाले रहेंगे न लोन देने वाले रहेंगे. देने वाले भले भी रह ले, प्राइवेट कंपनी का तो कोई पता नहीं है 50 साल में कहाँ जाएगी. ठीक है. So effectively the private sector is getting kind of grant under this. But rather than telling it as a grant, the government has categorized it as a loan so that it could show it as part of capex. और ऐसे करके हमारा capex हाईएस्ट लेवल पे पहुंच गया है, 3.4% ऑफ जीडीपी, 25% ऑफ टोटल एक्सपेंडिचर, 23.3%, अप्रोक्सीमेटली 25% याद करो, ठीक है. सो दिस इज हाउ अ स्मार्ट फाइनेंशियल मैनेजमेंट इज बीइंग डन, ठीक है. It is important that this fund would be available for R&D by private sector, not by the government sector, because government already is doing R&D in various of its institute and research institutions. Okay. One new word is there which have been announced is deep technologies, or rather deep tech technology, which is the word which have been used, and this is being said that a new scheme would be announced. तो जब स्कीम अनाउंस होगा उसका तो तब देखेंगे. But as of now, we need to understand what is deep tech technology. Deep tech का मतलब होता है there is some technology which is futuristic in nature, which is still not clear what form it will take. This is a new kind of technology. For example, this is also use the word hard tech, the tech which has yet not been mastered by the humankind. Can you give me some example of this deep technology or hard technology? This is the technology solutions based on substantial scientific or engineering challenges. As of now, very high engineering challenges are there with respect to this technology. It has high technical risk, low market risk. Think of some example at least. Yes, quantum computing, you are right. Drone technology. This driverless car, still this is in a process of evolution. This hyperloop, this is a technology which has probably failed. Okay, so the fourth industrial revolution that we are talking about, this is something which is yet a hard technology. So when we are saying that it has high technical risk, matlab there are chances that this technology may not be developed. For example, in hyperloop, now probably this idea is being dropped now, that hyperloop cannot be developed. But market risk is low because the market is already there. If this technology is successfully developed by someone, there is definitely buyer available for this. So that's why it is said that there is low market risk, whereas high technical risk. The chances of this technology getting developed is less. So obviously it has high risk. So government needs to pitch in with its investment. Government will have to take risk here. So in defense sector, the government will come up with a scheme for development of deep tech technology in defense sector. So like drones technology, etc. These are also a deep tech as of now. Then government also gives some macroeconomic indicators. Now government is saying that there is a fall in headline inflation. I cannot see a fall here by looking at this picture. This picture is simply, I mean overall I can see there is a increase over here. But probably government is saying that see, compare this with this. When we have inherited the economy, there was 9.4% inflation. Currently we have 5.5% inflation. Okay. So government is not willing to compare from here. Government is only comparing from here. As of now, in the recent time, there is increased inflation. Why I have brought this picture over here? That if a question comes that there is a consistent increase or decrease, that's not the case. Every year inflation has gone down, gone up, gone down. There is a zigzag trend vis-a-vis inflation. Okay. Manjinder, hyperloop is an idea that in vacuum, we can have a capsule kind of thing which can travel very fast in vacuum, say up to 1000 km/h speed. Okay. So this was the idea that usually normally any good travel very faster in vacuum. So if we have some capsule, this is a capsule which will be traveling in this loop, okay, at a hypersonic speed, even faster than the speed of sound. That's why the name hyperloop was there. It will be, this capsule will have people or cargo inside it, and this will travel at the speed higher than the speed of the sound Why it will be traveling at such a high speed? Because it would be traveling in vacuum. This was the idea, but it could not be practically developed. Okay, because see, there were a lot many problem will come if I am as a human being, I am thrown at the speed higher than the speed of sound. Normal people may not survive. Our body will have various different kind of reactions to that thing. High pressure, low pressure, all those problem will occur. Okay, like those uh, fighter planes travel, and those pilot of the fighter plane are very well trained. Not everyone can become the fighter plane pilot. Not everyone can become astronaut. So general masses cannot travel at this high speed, and there are other some technical problem, it could not be developed. Yes, Manjinder, these are the real problems because of which this technology could not be mastered as of now. And then the idea came that goods can be traveled. Then the people said that we do not know the goods in such a hurry. Goods are in such a hurry. So I mean, obviously there would be cost. These technology, this high speed travel, creation of vacuum is going to be a costly affair. So to transport goods at such a high cost may not be a good idea. So that's why the company which was like Virgin Hyperloop was a company, that company has shut down its operation. Next is inflation. We have seen that in case of inflation, there is no consistent trend. You must be knowing the difference between headline inflation and core inflation. This is the data for headline inflation. Core inflation also have the similar data. What is the difference between headline inflation, core inflation? And there is also something called refined core inflation. Yes, headline, I mean, there is a basket of goods and services. So if a basket representing all the goods and services in the economy are taken, this inflation would be headline inflation. From this basket, if food and fuel component are removed, this would be called core inflation. But in core inflation also it was found that the fuel which is used in transportation, that fuel is not being removed. So if we further refine this basket by removing the fuel used in transport sector, that basket would be, the inflation which we will get would be called refined core inflation. Okay. Next, government also said that the banking sector is also having a good time. Okay. The chances of say any NPA based question is less. In financial year 18, the NPA was very high. This was the time when Nirav Modi, Vijay Mallya, these were the kind of people who were already always in the news. Nowadays, the NPA problem has subsided. If the problem has subsided, the chances of them being asked is very less. But still, you can have a near-wise 5-year trend is there of consistently reducing NPA. Okay, so recent time, there is a consistent reduction in NPA. Before that also in 5 years, there was a consistent increasing of NPA in banking sector as well. This increasing of NPA gives to something called twin balance sheet problem. You must be knowing, if you don't know it. It is like balance sheet of banks and companies, both are bad, in bad shape. So both are stressed. This is called twin balance sheet problem. Now something which the government can rightly boost up is rising volume of digital transaction. Like this is the amount of digital transaction that is happening. Amount is not important. What is important is that there is a consistent increase, and you can say that this is something around 2000, from 2000 to 15,000. So approximately in last 5 years, 7 times, approximately ही याद रखना है, 7 times growth has happened in number of digital transaction. ठीक है? In last 5 years. Then this is the last aspect. In case of FDI also, in say last 10 years, the amount of FDI coming has doubled. This is a natural aspect. This is, I mean, if it has remained constant or if it has gone down, that would have been a problem. Obviously, FDI increases every year, or rather it should increase every year because of the inflation also. So, but it has doubled. This is something, agar FDI pe question aaya to you can quote this data. Do not remember 596 and 298. This is difficult to remember. Simply remember that doubled. In last 10 years, the amount of FDI coming to the country has doubled. The forex reserve is at the highest level. It has crossed $600 billion level. That's all that you got to remember. So you got to simplify the data and then memorize it. Then the government is saying that the current account deficit has also declined. Again, I find it very difficult to see where it has been declining. I mean, there is a constant dip and rise, dip and rise, dip and rise trend. So just because in this financial year it is expecting to go down, it has claimed that now the current account deficit has decreased. For us, UPSC aspirant, we have to say that there is no consistent trend vis-a-vis current account deficit. Okay. Although there was increasing growth for last 4 years, this year it has gone down. So there is no consistent rising or declining trend vis-a-vis current account deficit. We have to only remember this. And here we have to remember that it is approximately 1.2% of GDP, which is going to be in financial year 24. Okay. Again, this is also the first half data. So जब latest data आएगा तो उससे आप update कर देना, इसको याद करने का कोई मतलब नहीं है. Doesn't make any sense. That's all that we had in this video. I hope आपको ये वीडियो इफेक्टिव लगा है, यूजफुल लगा है. अगर आपको अच्छा लगा है तो डेफिनेटली लाइक करें, शेयर करें और हमारे चैनल को सब्सक्राइब करें अगर अभी तक आपने सब्सक्राइब नहीं किया है, और इस वीडियो को शेयर करें ताकि ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा लोग हमारे इनिशिएटिव के बारे में, इस चैनल के बारे में जान सकें और इसको सब्सक्राइब कर सकें. आपको अगर कोई सुझाव है, कोई भी डाउट है तो डेफिनेटली मेंशन करो कमेंट सेक्शन में. आई वुड बी हैप्पी टू रिप्लाई दैट. एंड द पीपीटी of this video would be posted on my Telegram channel. Go there and download the PPT. Okay, it would be posted in say 5 or 10 minutes from now. Go there, download the PPT, revise this data. They are mostly useful for mains, but do revise the trends even before prelims exam.